Hello everyone, my name is Katie. I am the Introverted Reader and I do today I wanted to film a video for you. I wasn't sure what sort of video I wanted to film, but then I thought to myself, you know what? I keep going on and on about favourites, and given the current situation right now, a lot of us are reading to pass the time. At least I know I am. So I thought I would give you some recommendations, so that, you can maybe find a new fave. Most of these are my favorites. So really this is a recommendations slash books that you need to read type video. So none of these are in any order, but the first one that I'm picking up here from my pile is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renegades Trilogy. This is a duology. It's this one, The Wrath and the Dawn, and then there's The Rose and the Dagger, that's the second one. This duology is absolutely beautiful. It's kind of a retelling of 1001 Nights, so it's basically a story about this, the ruler of the kingdom, or the king, basically he has he has a different wife every now and then. He chooses a different wife every so often, but the night after their wedding night, the wives are dead, and our main character, Sherazade, basically decides to volunteer herself in order to kill him because too many girls have died under his watch. So she's kind of taken it upon herself to take on the burden and survive her first night and basically kill this man. And yeah, that's really all I know about it, but like, it's so beautifully written, it's so atmospheric, so beautiful, and I was hooked the entire time. And somebody a while ago on Twitter asked me how I rate my books. One of the things I rate is how immersed I am in the story, and this one just pulled me in. So this one is 100% a one that I would recommend. A series that I wanted to recommend, the first one was a duology. This next one is a 12-book long series, but they're not very long books, they're really short, and that is the House of Night series by PC and Kristen Cast. They are a mother-daughter author duo. They've written books individually, but they teamed up to write this series. This is a teenage vampire series about a girl called Zoe who gets marked as a vampire to go to the House of Night. So she literally gets a crescent moon mark on her forehead because all the vampires have these tattoos on their face that mark them as vampires. So anyway, basically she gets marked as a vampire to go to the House of Night, and she arrives there and discovers all these unique gifts that she has and this whole like magical mystical world. And it's set in Tulsa in the Bible Belt, and there's a lot of animosity between the local residents of Tulsa and obviously the students and teachers of the House of Night, who are all vampires. Well, you're not a full vampire until you go through the change, and if you don't go through the change then you die. There are a few scenes where some students are lost, so I'll warn you for that. It's quite sad because they are only children, but yeah, I really love the series. I read this when I was 16 years old, and then I read it again about 10 years later, I think not last year but the year before. It has its problems, but if you're looking for a series that is fun and magical, full of friendship and goddess magic, then you'll really love the series. And the books are really short, like you'll fly through them no problem. Okay, the next series that I want to talk about are really just author in general. Percy Jackson by Rick Riordan. So basically, read Percy Jackson or any Rick Riordan book that you want. He has quite a lot of book series out as of now. There's Percy Jackson, and then there's the Heroes of Olympus, there is the Magnus Chase trilogy, there's the Kane Chronicles, and there's the Trials of Apollo series. So this is like a middle grade series sort of based on Greek mythology. The Cant Chronicles is based on Egyptian mythology, and Magnus Chase is based off of Norse mythology. But basically, Percy Jackson is a series about this young boy who discovers that he is a demigod. He is the son of Poseidon. And this first book, The Lightning Thief, it's basically someone has stolen something from Zeus, and Percy's accused of stealing it. And he basically kind of has to clear his name in this first one. And the series carries on sort of from here. And if you want to read The Heroes of Olympus, I would recommend you read this series first, because that's kind of like a sequel series to this one. But if you want to start with Magnus Chase or the Cant Chronicles or any other Rick Riordan series, then that's fine. You don't have to start with Percy, but I would recommend that you would. So there's this series, which is about 5 books long, I believe. And yeah, it's really, really fun. And like I said, the books are short, so you'll get through it no problem. The next one I want to talk about is a duology that I just recently read, I think last year. It was one of my favorites of last year. Onyx and Ivory by Mindy Arnett. This is a story about a girl called Kate, whose father was accused and executed for attempting to assassinate the king. And obviously for his actions, she has been branded a traitor. And she's at the beginning of the book, she's sort of trying to live like incognito. She kind of tries to live secretly, so no one really knows who she is. But then it gets out who she is, and then, you know, she kind of has to deal with the repercussions of her father's actions and all that stuff. There's a whole much more to this duology. There is magic. There's the love interest, her relationship with the prince, because her and the prince were best friends growing up, and then everything with her father happened and they hadn't seen each other in a while, so there's all that. It's very angsty, but it's also very magical, and it's also really just a story about this girl sort of letting go of the guilt she's been carrying, because it's not really her guilt to carry, it's her father's. And yeah, there's so much more to the series, like I said, but this duology really, really blew me away. So Onyx and Ivory, highly recommend. The next trilogy I want to recommend to you is from Cassandra Clare, and it's the Infernal Devices trilogy. This is my favourite of all Cassandra Clare's trilogies that she has put out thus far. And I also have Chain of Gold, which is behind me here. I can't lift it out, but it's behind me here, and that's the start of the sequel series to this trilogy. If you're going to read Chain of Gold, read the Infernal Devices first. You don't have to read all of the Shadowhunter books before getting to Chain of Gold, except maybe for this trilogy. So read Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess before Chain of Gold. But like, honestly, even if you don't want to read Chain of Gold or any of the Mortal Instruments or whatever, that's fine. But I still would recommend that you read this trilogy. If anybody, like of all the series that Cassandra Clare puts out, if everybody just reads this, I'll be happy, because the Infernal Devices is wonderful. It's set in Victorian London. It's so beautiful and atmospheric, and you'll want to die for Will Herondale by the end of it. Like, you really will. Like, that boy has fully stolen my heart. So would highly recommend that. The next series I want to talk about is a 4-book series, and that is The Diviners by Libba Bray. This is set in 1920s New York, about a group of young people who all discover they have certain different abilities. One can, every time she touches a certain object, she can read its history and discover people's secrets. There's another one who can go invisible. There's one that has visions. So they all have like different abilities, and they're known as the Diviners. And see the way Libba Bray writes this, like, she coincides everything with major historical events that are happening in America and in New York at this time. And it's just so just eerie and creepy. And read this when the sun's out, I'll say. They're big chunky books, but like, honestly, I find myself flying through these even though they're so big. But so The Diviners, Libba Bray. If you like spoopy, creepy stuff, then read this series. The next series I want to talk about is another 4-book series. The 4th one is due to come out very soon, and that is Ember in the Ashes by Saba Tahir. This is kind of like a Greek mythology inspired story about this young girl who whose people have been oppressed by this other group of people for a very, very long time. And then her brother ends up going missing, and she kind of goes on this journey to try and find him, and all sorts of things happen from there. I'm giving very basic synopsises here because I don't want to ruin any of these books for you, but I'm sure you've heard of this, surely. But yeah, I highly, highly recommend this. It's so well written and it's so fast paced, and the characters are just wonderful. So that's another one to put onto your ever growing TBR. The next one is part of a duology, and you probably had it up to here with me talking about it, but I'm gonna say it. Heart of Iron by Ashley Poston. This is wonderful. It's an Anastasia science fiction retelling about this girl called Anna, and is her name Anna? It's been a while. Hold on. Yes, Anna, and she is part of a like group of space pirates, because she was like abandoned in the space pod when she was a baby, and these space pirates found her, and the captain is in a female-female relationship, and she also, or like her best friend is bisexual, and she herself I think is known to be bisexual, and it's just it's wonderful. Like, wonderful LGBTQ representation, so fast-paced, so well written, and the characters in this are just mwah. We love them, we stan, and I need you all to know about Jax and Rob, because Jax and Rob are just, they're my sweet gay sons, and I love them. Anyway, enough talking about that. The next two I want to talk about is another little duology by Simon James Green, and that is Noah Can't Even and Noah Could Never. I've talked about these quite a lot. I talk about Simon James Green a lot on my channel, but like, I will not rest until everyone has read these, because they are hilarious. Like, it's basically about this boy called Noah, and he is the lowest of the low when it comes to the social hierarchy. He only has one best friend, and basically one day him and his best friend get invited to this party by this girl that Noah fancies, and they end up going to this party, but then him and his best friend Harry end up kissing. So it's really about Noah discovering himself and his developing feelings for his best friend, and gets up to so many hijinks along the way. This is absolutely hilarious. Like, I barely got 20 pages into this one before like I had tears in my eyes that I was laughing so hard. So read these, and also anything else that Simon James Green puts out. The next one is another duology that I absolutely love and adore, the polar opposite of a contemporary, and that is Strange the Dreamer by Lanny Taylor. This is a story about a man called Laszlo Strange, and he has this growing obsession with this land called the Land of Weep, and he spent his entire life reading about it, its history, its language, everything, but it's been lost to the world for years. And then one day people from the Land of Weep come to him, and he basically gets chosen to help them try and take their land back. It's so atmospheric and so well written. Like, Lanny Taylor is just a poet. Like, her writing is just absolutely beautiful. Like, and I love the edition that I have. It's like doodled on the inside, but like, it's just, this book is so beautiful, and Muse of Nightmares made me cry. So the next few I want to talk about, I'll just go through quickly. Fallen Kingdoms by Morgan Rose. This is a high fantasy young adult series about a group of characters. We've got a princess, we've got a rebel, we've got a sorceress, we've got good kings, bad kings. It's wonderful, it's fast paced, and there are 6 books in the series. It's not perfect, but again, if you're looking for something to get, you know, through nice and quick, if you want something binge worthy, read this, okay? The next is a part of a trilogy, and that is the Captive Prince trilogy by C.S. Pacat. This is not for the young adult, okay? It's absolutely not for the young adult, because it's a story about this prince that gets captured by an enemy kingdom, and he's basically made to be a sex slave for the prince of the enemy kingdom. So, not for the faint of heart. If you are triggered by anything by like sexual assault or just sexual content in general, be very wary. But like, I love this. It's beautiful. I love this so much, and it's really short. Like, you'll binge through this series no problem. Like, highly recommend. The next one is a nice and safe young adult and that is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. There's 3 books in this series. This is a story about superheroes. It's basically a city where superheroes basically are in charge. There's a council of them, they make all the laws, they keep everybody safe, but then there's this like anti-group called, are they called the, no, the good guys are the renegades, the bad guys are the anarchists. The name escaped me for a second there. They're called the anarchists, and they basically want the renegades overthrown. So, and our main character is part of the anarchists, and she kind of goes undercover within the renegades to try and like dethrone them, as it were. It's wonderful. It's so wonderfully fast-paced and funny and adventurous, and yeah, another binge-worthy trilogy. The next one, Shadow the Fox by Julie Kagawa. I just finished this series recently. It's 3 books. Beautiful. Like, if you love anime, you will love this. It's basically about this girl who's a kitsune. She's a fox spirit, and she gets entrusted with a piece of this scroll, and basically if all the pieces of this scroll come together and a wish is made to a magical dragon, then bad things will happen. Bad things will happen. Bad things. So many bad things. And yeah, that's really all I can say, but you need to read this. You need to read this series. Like, it's just, oh, I cried reading the 3rd one. That's how much of an effect it had on me. Next one, I want to talk about Rise of Kyoshi by FCU. This is actually part of a duology. I haven't read the 2nd one yet, but I know I'm going to love it. If you're a fan of Avatar, The Last Airbender, read this. Like, I would honestly read 10 more books to win this world about this character. It's basically about Avatar Kyoshi, how she came to be the Avatar and all the adventures after she discovered that she was the Avatar. So, yeah. And just look at her. Look how badass she is. I'm so excited to read the 2nd one. And the very last one that I want to talk about is the Stalking Jack the Ripper series by Carrie Maniscalco. If you're into true crime, if you're into mystery, if you love Victorian London settings, if you like creepy, spoopy stuff, read this series. This one, the first one, this one right here, was good. It's basically the story about this girl called Audrey Rose, and she wants to be a forensic scientist, but given the time, you know, it's the 18th century, women were basically just like, no, you're gonna get married, you're gonna have children, you're gonna stay in the house, and so, but she doesn't want to do that. She wants to be a forensic scientist. She wants to analyze dead bodies and solve crimes with her partner in crime, Thomas Creswell. And you need to know about Thomas Creswell because he's wonderful. So highly, highly recommend this series if you haven't read it already. I'm reading the 4th one right now and things are happening. Okay, I understand that was quite a long list, but I really just wanted to give you guys some good recommendations for books that I love and books that I want you to love as well. Leave some recommendations down below for each other if you wish. If you have anything that you want me to read, leave it down in the comments. As well, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram for all the Introverted Reader readathon updates. I'm doing quite well. I've got 3 books read thus far for my own readathon, which is good. I'm working on the Bratz readathon at the minute. Like, this is what happens when I take part in 2 readathons. But anyway, that's it for this video. I've kept you long enough. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, like I said. Feel free to subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye-bye.